Hello and welcome today to Unfound Helps podcast. I'm joined by Kehan Zhou, which is a co-founder of Terrascope. He also has a business partner in Terrascope, which is Julian Portis. He's the business partner and co-founder of Terrascope as well. However, we'll get back into what Terrascope is about. We'll first talk about Kehan. Kehan, you deal with business development, growth, and the financial side of business in Terrascope. But let's go back into when you first started business. Did you start business from a young age? Did you always aspire to be a businessman or an entrepreneur? Where did you start your career?
Yeah, first of all, thanks, Ross, for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about my journey as well as Terrascope. Very early on, my family has always been attentive to cultivate the business side of me at a very young age. I remember reading the book Poor Dad, Rich Dad when I was 8 years old and feeling really inspired by the story. And I actually took groceries from my from my family and went out to the street and start selling them. Of course, I sold them at a loss because I didn't know how expensive food was. But that was my very first business journey.
Look, we all have to start somewhere, whether it's at a loss. If it was a profit, it's a gain for everyone. But you started from a young age, so is that something from both your mother and father's side, which they sort of led you into it, or did you just grasp the idea and you were interested in business from a young age?
Yeah, I think my mother definitely saw some interest from me in understanding, the economy, understanding how business works at a young age. So she was very careful and she was very conscientiously try to cultivate that side of me. So me and my mom is in business consulting, and even when I was a teenager, as a child, we always talk about business. I always tell her about, oh, how does this work, or how do you negotiate with your suppliers? So a lot of things really comes from her, that I get the opportunity to have this mentor at home that I can ask stupid questions to 24/7.
Do you still ask your mom those stupid questions till today, or are you always curious even till now, and you ask your mum, for help sometimes?
Yeah, I think as I grew and learned more about business myself, there came a point where I began to know more than her. But I still, when I come up with a new business idea, I'm always excited to share it with her because it's becoming more of emotional support, right? It's less about the technical side, but it's more about having someone who is just so supportive, who is also, happy to share my successes.
Yeah, it's nice to always sort of lean back onto the person who supported you from that young age to even now. Although you're trying to support them, it's still to sort of get their feedback on, are you doing the right thing? Is this best? Or that sort of thing. So even though you started from a young age, even through your teenager years, getting experience, what did you go into? Did you go into university, into college, and what did you study in there?
Yeah, so I was very lucky because I grew up in Beijing, but for college, I got a full scholarship to attend Wesleyan University in Connecticut. It was a tremendous privilege and a very great opportunity for any high schoolers who are interested in American education. So I took that opportunity, flew out of the country for the very first time to the U.S. I didn't know anyone. I didn't really know anything about the U.S. I've never been. So it was a very fun adventure. Of course, like a lot of college students, I was exploring in terms of what I want to do or what I wanted to do. I took so many different classes. I initially wanted to be a dance major uh, in college, which is very different from what I do nowadays. Not that different, but uh, pretty different, pretty far apart. But eventually, when I start getting more exposure to microeconomics and the more I would say traditional economic theories, I become really fascinated by how this invisible force that's governing our day-to-day activities. So I eventually shifted my major from dance to economics, and that has become like a huge passion of mine. Even to today, I still read books about behavioral economics, behavioral finance. I just finished a book actually last weekend.
Okay, so you went into going from a dance major into economics, which is a fairly different stride of that. After university and anything like that, what sort of route of career, business, or anything did you go into? Did you go straight into economics? Did you go into a different line of work? Sort of. The point is, where did it lead you into to where you have come to today?
Yeah. So I originally with economics, I wanted to become a researcher for economic policies. But in junior year, I stumbled upon an opportunity to be a sales and trading intern for Citigroup. So for people who are not familiar with the sales and trading career, it's essentially a market maker. It's when you think about movies like The Wolf of Wall Street or The Big Short, those people are in sales and trading. They're the traders. They're making the calls for the company. They're making the markets. They're operating with hundreds of millions of dollars of portfolios. So I was very lucky to have one of those opportunities and went to New York and really worked with the best financial minds of our time to learn about how the market operates and how to essentially digest economic news, and how to impact how people operate within this market. So that was a really, really interesting learning, because for a college junior to have that kind of front row seat to witness what is happening in the market, and the transactions are always in millions of dollars, it was very eye opening, and it really helped me understand that economic doesn't only exist in the academia or only in business. It can exist in a very fast-paced environment where you're making decisions, every couple of seconds. So that kind of fast-paced environment and the kind of entrepreneurial aspect of it, because you're owning your own transactions, you're the one who's calling the shots, that really appealed to me. To both of my interests, right? The entrepreneurial side as well as the economic interest. So I just fell in love with trading, and that ended up becoming my career. I got a full-time job offer after the summer internship, and I returned after graduation to Citigroup as a proprietary municipal bond trader. So I was given a very large responsibility right off the gate, because I have my own portfolio, which was $20 million. I was managing that much money at a very young age, right out of the college. And that really taught me a lot about the responsibilities and a lot about, operating on a higher level, right? Immediately, I was not really a junior person. I was working with people who are, in their 40s, who have been in the industry for a longer time, very long time, but we're business partners. So it's a very rare opportunity, but it was such a good learning for me to learn, to occupy my space, really, to be confident when you're working with seasoned experts.
Yeah, even from it really put you into a perspective from a young age to understand financials very quickly, but also puts you in the mindset of creating solutions very fast if a problem is to arise. And that really helps you in the later aspects of when it comes to, working in a different workspace, in a different industry. But even now, because you are, the co-founder of Terrascope, it really helps you in your own field of business to really start thinking quickly on your feet when something needs to be done. It helps a lot, and that's really good. That being said, let's talk a little bit about what your business is. what Terrascope is, and sort of how it has come about. Because you've gone from, you've gone from being economics or a dance major to economics to investment banking to now going into Terrascope. What is Terrascope? When did you start it? How did you start it? But why did you start it?
Sure. So basically, while I was really enjoying my life as an investment banker, as a trader, I also really always wanted to start a company of my own. Like we talk about from a very young age, I wanted to start, want to create something that is 100% me, 100% in line with my vision of the world and in line with how I think technology can evolve and help our society. So last year, both me and my co-founder were looking for rural real estate actually independently, kind of unbeknown to each other. We didn't know that we were doing that. But when we touched base, we realized that, we were both interested in moving out of cities, and we both had the same pain point of trying to search for rural properties online. And then we start talking to other people. A lot of people actually during the pandemic wanted to move rural, right? They wanted to leave the cities. And actually this trend, I can talk about it a little bit later too, because it's very interesting. It's also here to stay because of remote work. So even as the COVID pandemic is is getting under control, we're still seeing a lot of people looking to move to rural areas. But all these people we talked to had told us back then last year, told us more about the pain point, which was searching for rural properties online is a big challenge. It's hard sometimes for the users, as an entrepreneur, the first thing we need to understand is the users will tell you, okay, this is not working, right? But it's our responsibility to tease out exactly what is not working for them and what the solutions are. So that is our responsibility. So after we, talked to 20 people who had the same problem, Julian and I sat down. We were like, okay, this cannot be the best solution out there. There must be some way we can use technology to improve the experience. So that is the beginning of Terrascope. We start thinking about what is missing in the current experience. What is working? Like when people are having a good experience, what happened to make their experience great, right? So we also talked to a couple of buyers who were like, we find great properties. And then we asked them about their experience, try to dive into exactly what is the best way to search for rural properties. And we're trying to digitize that experience in an AI solution.
Okay, so you were talking about technology and how people are within this trend now from the pandemic trying to move out of the cities into rural areas. And based on that, you said a lot of people are struggling to try and find, properties to move into. Now, you were using a technology. This is an AI technology, which is artificial intelligence. That's correct, yes?
Yes.
Now, how do you implement AI into your system to help people find this? Because a lot of people don't know what AI is or how it works, but especially how you can really make it advantageous in your industry or your business now to help people find properties. How does that come into, the whole scope of work?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, very early on, we realized that when people struggle to find rural properties online, it's often not a problem with inventory. It's not because there are no good properties available, right? There are tons of properties available. Actually, that is the problem. It's because there are so many properties available, it becomes very difficult for people to narrow down the best matches for them when they don't have a good tool, efficient tool to do that. And that is exactly what our users were telling us. So they were saying, oh, you know what? When I go on other websites like Zillow, I type in these criterias, but the results are just so broad, right? Because Zillow is not targeting the rural market. You can search by a lot of factors, like if it's good for hunting, what's the buildable area, if it has utility, what kind of septic system the property has. So because of that, because of the lack of filters in the first place, they're seeing properties that are just don't meet their criteria. So it's a very mixed result. So that becomes very overwhelming, and the users ended up having to essentially manually go through these results, right? So they're missing out on great properties, and they're also overwhelmed.
So your system really allows for a very sort of specific filtration system to allow your users to really narrow down what they are specifically looking for.
Exactly, and that's where the AI comes in, right? So, if you look across the competition, the competitive landscape, most 99% of the real estate websites out there are based on filters. They ask you, do you want 3 bedrooms? If so, they're going to filter their database by 3 bedrooms and show you all the 3 bedrooms. But this method is not really a good method for rural properties for a very important reason. Rural properties buyers tend to consider 3 to 5 times more variables, because in addition to the structure itself, to the home itself, they have to consider things about the land. How big the land is, what kind of features on the land, if there's any utility poles on the land, if there's any driveway. So because of this amount of variables they need to consider, filters become burdensome, right? So when you have more variables to filter through, just asking your users to tick the boxes of 30 variables become, first of all, burdensome, but also very prone to mistakes, right? So if the user didn't set the correct combination of filters, they're going to miss results. So we think there must be a better way to, first of all, simplify the process, at the same time understand the user preferences in a much more linear way, right? Because the problem with filter is that it's binary, either yes or no. There's really no in between, right? And it also doesn't tell us how firm the yes is, or if it's a deal breaker when it doesn't have this, when the property does not have this feature. That's where the AI comes in. So when you go on Terrascope, you see one listing at a time, and the AI agent asks you what your thoughts are on this property. If you like it, we're going to show you more properties like this. If you don't like it, we ask you to choose a reason why this property is not right for you. And because we're asking your thoughts on the property, we're able to really understand your preferences in a very new way.
We were talking about that properties on your websites are listed one at a time, which is easier for people to find properties as well. But the way that your AI system works is through the customers being able to filter themselves, as you were saying, based on their requirements. But are these based on through attributes where customers can really narrow down their searches?
Yeah, actually, it is based on what we call tags. So on each listing, we generate a large amount of data on the listing itself. For example, if it's close to a national park, if it's waterfront, what kind of view it has, does it have good school districts? So all of these tags are associated with the listing. So when users are giving us feedback on what kind of properties they want, we are able to look at the property pool and then pick out these properties with the associated tags for them. But one thing I want to emphasize is, for example, if you're looking for a property with waterfront, right? But you have a very low budget. Waterfront properties tend to be more expensive. So sometimes users give us these conflicting parameters. They're like, wait, I want to buy a home for $200,000, but also want a waterfront view. So sometimes that's not really doable. But that this is also where the AI comes in and becomes really useful. When the criteria become contradicting, AI is able to balance, okay, how badly do you actually care about waterfront? Are you more price sensitive or are you more waterfront sensitive, right? So all these attributes in our database exist on from the user side, the user's preference exists on a spectrum. It's not just yes or no. And that's the real way people search for properties. It's oftentimes a trade-off, right? It's oftentimes a compromise. It's not yes or no. That's why AI is super useful, because with a smart search, they're able to understand your trade-off and then help you make better decisions in the process.
So rather than a lot of people, like you were saying, they have to, compromise on one thing over the other, your AI really tries to sort of help people not have that compromise on one big topic or one big, attribute, if you want to say. You try to really narrow it down to make sure it's not one of the big things you give away, but maybe we just give away on that septic tank, or that land is not so big, or something like that. But you have a good price point and you have that lake view or that ocean view, whichever you want, your two main key points to selling that property.
Exactly, yeah.
Your AI real estate, which is what you guys are sort of classified as, is very different to a traditional real estate agent. How are you different to a traditional real estate, other than you basing your search, or customers are basing their searches off an AI system? Your website is also very different to a typical real estate. You don't have a lot of pictures of properties on there. You don't push people's faces with a lot of properties in their face on the websites or anything. What is your marketing strategy behind it, and how do you want to be different to a normal real estate agent?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the logic behind the design we have on our landing page is that we are presenting a fairly new solution. So every time you're bringing something new to the market, you have to take the time to educate the users, or to help the users understand, first of all, how does the product work, and then second of all, what is the value that it offers you. Because for consumers, psychologically, there's a switching cost, right? If you're used to Zillow, switching to a new platform, you need to learn something new. And the consumers are always balancing, is the switching cost worth the benefit? So we're trying to tell them, listen, you might be not used to this particular interface, but let me tell you why this is useful. Even though you are seeing one listing at a time and you have to give feedback, but guess what? You're getting to the right properties much faster, and you're now viewing properties that are not within that doesn't suit your needs, right? So that happens on other sides. So we're trying to tell them, oh, this is how the product works. That's why we, on the landing page, we try to explain essentially the rules of the game and let them know this is what they should be expecting. But that being said, I think one point I always like to point out is that the AI real estate, when we designed the product, we did draw a lot of inspiration from how real estate agents work with their clients. So if you recall your experience working with the agent, they show you a list of listings and they're like, oh, Ross, what do you think about this property? And you say, I don't like it, or I like it for some reason. And the agents are learning your preferences. But with Terrascope, instead of having an agent and waiting for the agent to get back to you with new updated listings, the AI algorithm is listening to your preferences 24/7 and giving you all the real-time listings we have.
That's it's a very clever system. You're sort of taking out that middle person of the agent being there all the time, and you're just having that AI, or a computer, if you want, for other people to understand, a computer listening to your specifics, what you want, and you get those results very quickly.
Exactly.
Terrascope, when did you start Terrascope? Did you see a really big spike in users very quickly? Has it been a slow start? How's that been picking up?
Yeah, so I think, we started Terrascope last November. So me and my co-founder start drafting and start designing the product last August. But the product went live last November. So it's been a year, 12 months time that the product has been in the market. So far, we have had 17,000 users who use our product with 250,000 views on different listings. So we got a lot of feedback from users. We also have so many more listings than when we first started, and we're in 4 different states. So the way the growth worked for us was, I would say there was definitely a period, the first month or so, that we were a bit slow because we're trying to really nail the product market fit, right? Trying to see, okay, what feature is working for the users, what feature doesn't, what are they looking for? And once we became clear on what the users truly want, the strength of our product, which is, we're able to give you better listings, literally the best listings for you that's available anywhere within our states, right? Once we realize that's our strength, we lean into it, and then the growth really picked up. And another interesting thing about any prop tech company, if there are prop tech listeners here, which is prop tech companies often grow in a very different pattern. Because, for example, Tinder, you don't really care particularly where the user is, as long as you have some kind of legal jurisdiction and you're fulfilling the regulatory requirement, you can operate in the whole US, right? But prop tech is different because real estates are very localized, and real estate regulations are often also localized, as well as the listings. That often lead to prop tech companies grow by geographical expansion. And that's exactly what happened with us. We started with one state, Montana, and then we moved to California. And in the past week, we just added 2 more states, Texas and Florida. And our goal is to go fully national to cover the whole US in the next year or so.
It's a good growth rate considering, how much of a startup business, if you want to really say that you are. Considering you've only started in the first year, already you have that many users and that many searches within a year's time. It's very good. So congratulations on that, and well done for that. Now, AI, like I mentioned before, is very different to a traditional style of real estate agents. Do you have many competitors in this field, or are you very few?
Yeah, so the AI technology itself is not new. It's not particularly new to real estate because Zillow does use AI to try to predict your preferences too. But what's truly new, what's truly unique about Terrascope is that we are training our AI with a different data set. So Zillow uses the clicks data or how long you stay on the page to predict whether you enjoy the listing or not. But as you can imagine, you might stay on the page because you forgot to close it, or you might stay on the page because you love it. You just want to get more information on the listing. So because of that data is very noisy, the efficiency of their AI algorithm is not, I would say, it's not reaching its full potential. But what's really unique about Terrascope is our data are very high signal. They're packed with information. The users are explicitly telling us they like the property, or when they don't like it, why they didn't like the property, right? So that allowed our AI technology to pinpoint the user preferences much, much faster and offer much better results. And in terms of if there's anyone out there using similar technology, there's no one out there using the similar technology in the rural space. So in the rural real estate market, Terrascope is the only offering for this kind of product, AI product.
That's a very good statement. Bring on the competitors, I suppose. A few things just to round off is that you deal with, from what I understand, you deal with the sort of development of the business, the financial side of the business, and your business partner, Julian, he deals with, I believe, sort of the back end of the website development, say the coding and that sort of works. Is that sort of what you guys work with?
Yeah, so I mostly focus on business, focusing on marketing as well as the finance aspect of it. And Julian is our AI mastermind. He's the one, I want to give a big prop to him because he's the one who built the AI system, built the data processing for our listings, as well as the website and the back-end design. So he's really the one-man army for Terrascope on the product side.
That's it's very good. I want to sort of just I want to end our sort of podcast interview with a sort of a bio about what Terrascope is. So I'll read it out and I'll let you end it there with your final thoughts. So just to round up what we had been speaking about, Terrascope is the first AI real estate agents for finding and browsing rural properties online, reimagining the rural real estate search process. Terrascope uses a cutting-edge machine learning algorithm and intelligent design to provide a brand new online property search experience. Their search algorithm learns each user's unique preferences to recommend the best listings like an expert real estate agent. Since the launch last year, Terrascope has successfully gained over 17,000 current users, which includes hundreds of thousands of search to date. With AI being the forefront of their technology in their modern day real estate agency, of how it's being run, I congratulate you guys. It's something that's new to me. I'm sure it's new to everyone, but I hope that many people who listen to this, they start to look at your website. Your website is www.terrascope.io. I will link everything in the description for the podcast as well as the websites. Is there anything you would like to add to that?
Yeah, thank you, Ross, for having me today. Had a really good time, talking about Terrascope, sharing our learning along the way. We're always looking for collaboration. We're always looking for talents as well. So, if you are in the prop tech space and you're looking for collaboration, or if you enjoy the idea, you want to talk further, feel free to shoot us a message at hello@terrascope.io. We're always open to have a conversation, and I hope this has been useful to all of your listeners, and thank you again for having me today.
Thank you very much, Kehan, and thank you everyone for listening. Thank you from Unfound Help podcast. Have a great day, great morning, or great evening.